Welcome to Life, Lessons, and Legacy, the podcast where we delve into the stories that shape our lives and the lessons we carry forward. I'm your host, Cedric D. Nelson, and I'm excited to embark on this journey of discovery, growth, and inspiration with you. Each episode will explore the triumphs, challenges, and pivotal moments that define who we are and who we aspire to be. From personal stories to enlightening conversations with guests from all walks of life. We'll uncover the wisdom, insights, and perspectives that illuminate the path to a meaningful existence. Whether you're seeking motivation, guidance, or simply a moment of reflection, life, lessons, and legacy is here to accompany you on your quest for fulfillment and purpose. So sit back, open your mind, and let's embark on this transformative journey together. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Life Lessons and Legacy podcast. I'm your host, Mr. Cedric D. Nelson, and today I'm honored to have a guest, Mr. Chad Bowman. Mr. Bowman, how are you doing today?
I'm well. How you doing, sir?
I'm doing well, man. I'm excited to have you on the show and let the listeners learn about you.
It's a pleasure to be here.
I
Definitely
appreciate
is. You
I
know I like
appreciate
chopping it up with you.
it. Always. That's the one thing we're gonna do if we get together for
Yes,
sure.
indeed. Yes, indeed.
All right. Well, I'm gonna start off. So, what's your background? Kind of let the listeners know where you're from and who you are.
Well, I'm Chad Bowman, of course. I was born and raised and bred in South Louisiana, right outside of New Orleans, in a little town called Slidell. Some people don't know where Slidell is, so I have to say New Orleans, and then New Orleanians get mad and say, "You're not from New Orleans?" Well, I'm from Slidell, Slidell, Louisiana, born and raised. My dad, mom, that's where I grew up, and they raised me. And then I left away from there. I went to college at the awesome great Southern University of Baton Rouge, Louisiana. Then I moved to Alabama and went to the Alabama A&M in Normal, Alabama, in Huntsville, Alabama. Great experiences attending HBCUs, and I met my wife there, my first wife there, and then I moved to Texas and worked there for a while. And she wanted to move back closer to family, so it brought me back here to Memphis, Tennessee, where I've been working in the field of urban and regional planning, working in government, doing some project management, and that sort of thing.
Okay. It's funny about the Slidell thing, Chad. I didn't know where Slidell was either. My wife is from Carrier, Mississippi, which is right up there. She's like you. She tries to explain where it is and she'll say like it's 45 minutes past Hattiesburg, or it's like 20 minutes to Slidell, and people are like, "What?" So, but Slidell's a great place. When we go to her folks' house, we always go to Slidell for the mall, for the
It
daiquiri
is.
shops, for all the shop, everything there. Everything is there in Slidell. It's great, great place.
It is, and it's actually growing. A lot of New Orleanians are relocating to Slidell because it is a bedroom community of New Orleans and like
Mm-hmm.
a suburb of New Orleans, and it's safer. There are better schools, less crime.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Quintessentially, we have the same culture as New Orleans. We may
Mm-hmm.
not have the same nightlife, so a lot of people don't mind making that commute to New Orleans to hang out and enjoy themselves and have a good time,
Yeah, and then come on back to safety,
and then come
basically.
on back home. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Hey, and I heard you say something about your career. You do urban, what is it? Urban and development.
Urban planning and development. Yes.
Okay, so can you talk a little more about the education? Well, you talk about your education, but your career background with that. How'd you get
Well,
into it?
basically, I went to undergraduate school and I majored in urban forestry management.
Okay.
And it was the result of working in a summer program at Southern University while I was in high school. Urban forestry is basically maintaining an environment where urban trees can grow safely. Like we take it for granted living in the southeast part of the United States
Mm-hmm.
that trees are in such abundance that we don't consider that. But in other places like the Midwest, the Northeast, the Northwest, in those areas, trees aren't as plentiful. So they
Mm-hmm.
spend a lot of effort and time maintaining them, taking care of them, making sure that their cities stay green. Well, once I majored in that, I realized this is not quite it, and it actually introduced me to working in government, particularly city government, municipality government, local government. And so I decided I would go to graduate school and major in urban and regional planning, which is simply city planning,
Okay.
understanding how a city should grow, develop, the factors that determines how successful a city will be, ways to reduce crime, improve education. It's a very holistic approach to the design and laying out of a city to benefit the people that live there. We look at neighborhoods. I did community development. We do
Mm-hmm.
environmental planning. We do planning and zoning. We do transportation planning. All of those are facets of urban and regional planning. And so I really was in the community development, working in neighborhoods to make the lives better for low income households and impoverished communities and so forth, and understanding how we can intricately put things in those communities to make them better. For example, I worked on a project when I worked in Fort Worth, Texas, where we showcased the history of that community. And the history was so amazing. There were so many first African American movers and shakers that came from that community. So as a way to showcase it, we created like an outdoor walking museum with fountains and and embossed monuments describing some of the people that came from the community. And there were several famous people that had visited there that also had come from there as well. So like I just really got into those type of projects and stayed in the area of urban and regional planning and moved around from Texas back to Tennessee and just kind of grew my career there and really have a passion for improving communities and cities.
Man, I think that's awesome, Chad. You know, I tell people when you go, that's one of the good things about going to college. It's so many opportunities there. Now, if you know, if you don't, you get out of what you put in. If you don't go and invest yourself and ask questions, because like I didn't know that that was something that I could even do. And you know what you do now, which
Yeah.
is amazing because you're actually helping people. And I want to ask
Well,
you also about the HBCUs. And did that help kind of guide you toward that?
so that's a great point and very timely question. And I say that because I was going to come back to you and explain to you that Alabama A&M University is one of three African American historically black colleges that offers urban and regional planning at a higher level, and it's accredited. So there aren't many HBCUs accredited for urban and regional planning. And when you think about it and you get to the heart and the core of it all, urban and regional planning impacts communities of color more than any other community. I mean, the developers are going to do what they're going to do. They have the money, they have the resources, they have the capital. But the actual work, a lot of it takes place in community and economic development, and it impacts communities of color more than anything. And so it's also an issue of placemaking and creating an environment where people and businesses can thrive. So you want those kind of things in your community. And as I mentioned, unbeknownst to me, I didn't realize Alabama A&M at the time when I attended there was the only accredited planning school in the state of Alabama. Can you imagine that? An HBCU, the only accredited school in the state of Alabama. There
Wow.
were several colleges there. You had University of Alabama, you had Auburn, you had UAB, you have University of Alabama, Huntsville, and several other colleges that are there. But the only one that was accredited and is still accredited is Alabama A&M. So we had a real diverse class, a diverse cohort. But I didn't realize that that was the only one in Alabama, and it's only three in the nation.
Wow.
And so planning for us as a career path
Hmm.
is not very popular and known. But I also feel like it's the most impactful. And when you see people such as myself leading the charge and working in the industry, it inspires young people to want to get into planning. Like we learn mapping, we learn how to do what's called charrettes, which is a gathering the public together and visioning and brainstorming on how they want to see their development grow and come about. It's just an amazing field, but a lot of African American people aren't aware that this is a career path. You know.
Yeah, yeah, not at all. Like I said, sometimes I say maybe it's God's plan that you ended up at the HBCU, and and again, one of the only programs in the nation where this happens. Because I tell people all the time, I had a principal named Dr. Reese. Now he'll be a guest coming on a coming upcoming episode, and seeing people that, and it's not necessarily about race, but me as a young black man seeing someone who looks like me doing the job that you do is very impactful, because then it opens my mind. It's okay, well, I don't have to just do these couple careers that I've seen on TV that I think make great money. I can do what he's doing, and I can make an impact on my community. So I think it's awesome.
The great classmates that I have gone on to do great things. We have uh, even though I'm a director, I have friends that have been planning directors in cities and in Georgia and across the country for years. My former roommate, which happens to be one of your frat brothers, Kurt, he's actually an assistant city manager. That's huge.
Wow.
So he's elevated to the level where he's helping to manage the entire city and all of the departments to help ensure that they function right and are managed properly so that that city can grow and thrive. So it's a great field.
Wow. And
And we had like a 98% placement rate too.
really?
I'm gonna throw that in there. Yes, that's
Wow.
how I wound up in Texas. One of my classmates worked for the city of Fort Worth planning department prior to my getting there, and then one of my classmates followed me to working in that department 6 months later. And then a year later, another one of my classmates, whom still work at the same agency, went to Dallas, the Dallas Fort Worth area, and started working for the North Central Texas Council of Governments. And we had classmates coming into town for interviews.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not embellishing. It's one of the greatest probably planning programs across the nation. Alabama A&M, I think Jackson State, and I want to say Morgan State at one time were the only ones that I knew were accredited in planning. There may be others, but at that time it was those three.
Wow. Now my question, so my, again, when I went, I didn't even know that even, was an option. How did
Right.
you find out about it or decide that's what you wanted to do? Did you kind of stumble upon it by while you were in school, or you kind of already knew?
Actually, I got to give another shout out to Ron Kuzar. I used to
Okay.
do summer internships in
Okay.
Colorado Springs when I was in college.
Mm-hmm.
And Ron Kuzar was an urban forester. And as an urban forester, he was like a city director operating a city function of ensuring that the trees were taken care of properly in the parks, ensuring that vendors who dealt with the trees were properly manicuring and pruning them, and they had proper licensure, and making sure when the development happened that a tree survey was done to keep the healthiest, most beneficial and viable trees, making sure people weren't introducing weed trees and trees that could possibly cause disease to the rest of them in the city. And he
Okay.
did this from a city management administrator type of perspective as like
Okay.
a director. And
Okay.
so it began to help me understand like there were other positions inside the city that helped guide how that city would develop. And then
Mm-hmm.
planning happened to be one. Like how do you want your community to grow? What do you want in your community? How can we design a community in such a way to reduce crime, to increase opportunities for wealth, uh, generational wealth, home ownership, all of those things. How do you design communities around schools? Can you use a school to design a community? And some of these things have been implemented and practiced around the nation. Like what I just mentioned about schools, you have places where the schools are not doing well, but if the administrators of that school and that community huddles around that particular school and make it a prize school where everybody want to be, then more people want to live in that neighborhood.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Man, and it's one of those things I think, Chad, like when you don't know, you don't know. Like this is a very insightful conversation for me because all the stuff you like you say, you see it. You see trees planted downtown, you see trees here, you see all this different stuff. You see these communities popping up, you see revitalization of different communities, revitalization of forests. And you never really think about it. You like you say, you just kind of take it for granted here in the South, not knowing that there's a whole plan that's in place to make sure all this happens and it thrives.
You
Man.
Yeah, even we did a huge tree planting as a part of one of my projects to embellish and improve the way that the Memphis International Airport looked. A lot of
Mm-hmm.
people didn't realize 20 years ago there weren't trees on Plow Boulevard going into the airport.
Wow.
It was just bare, but then there
Yeah.
was a big street being a big landscaping project where they implemented trees to improve the landscaping going into the airport to make the airport area more palatable.
Mm-hmm.
And that took thought, that took money. Actually, I'm gonna share something with you too. We were supposed to have a public art project out there. It never happened. But we
Really?
were gonna have a big monument that had some type of motion and movable features on it, but it
Mm-hmm.
never happened. But this stuff goes on behind closed doors, and no
Yeah.
one has a clue.
Yeah. Well, I had a buddy, I have a buddy who was a landscape engineer. And I didn't even know that that was a thing. Again, he came out and he was like, "Yeah, I'm a landscape engineer." And I was like, "A what?" But seeing his work, I realized, okay, yeah, this is a real field. Like this is, and it's needed because, like you say, even with the airport, you it's like again, you see the beauty of the trees being planted and all that, but you don't realize what went into making it happen,
Yeah,
if that makes sense.
yeah.
So all right, but so my next question, so what goals do you have coming up, I guess personal and professional?
Well, personal goals. I've currently been promoted and elevated to a position as a director. I want to continue to do that, and that was always a goal for me.
Okay.
I worked at various in organizations and
Mm-hmm.
enterprises and governments and so forth, but I never had the opportunity. And ironically, with government, sometimes it's not based on your ability, your education, or your experience. Sometimes it's about relationships.
Mm-hmm.
And it's difficult when you work in that environment if you don't get close enough to the person that's at the top of the totem pole. So,
Yes.
I was fortunate enough to get an opportunity based on my abilities and my skill set and so forth, which felt favorable to me because it's not based on anything else. So,
Mm-hmm.
that was one of my goals. But in the future, another one of my goals is also to become a professor, probably in the area of planning and development.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, hey, that's what's up. So, quick question. So, you think you want to be a professor at HBCU, or does it matter?
Actually, it doesn't matter, but ultimately, I would like to go to one of the HBCUs that I attended or one that's close to me locally and
Okay.
work there. And if they don't have an urban and regional planning program, I would like to pioneer one at a local university.
Mm-hmm.
Say, for instance, a Lemoyne Owen College. They could
Okay.
tremendously benefit from such a program. It's a small school. That's not one of their current offerings. So
Mm-hmm.
I like to be innovative too. So every job that I take, I like to innovate and create a new way to do things. I just
Mm-hmm.
feel like status quo is not working for us in most instances. So we always have to think ahead and be progressive about what we can do to move the needle. What can we do differently to move the needle? Because
Mm-hmm.
sometimes we do the same things over and over and over and never move the needle.
Yep.
So I always like to go into any position or opportunity thinking about how do you move the needle.
Yeah. And I think it would greatly benefit Lemoyne, like you said. I mean, I think with it being a smaller school, and I don't know if it's necessarily a struggle or not, but any new programs would help. And I know you with your personality, you're a talker, you're a thinker, you're a doer. So I think it would be tremendous for you to come in and build a program, which could, of course, increase enrollment. And again, it would help someone like me who didn't even know that that was an option for me. And
Yeah,
I'm helping my city because Memphis needs a lot of help at this point in
absolutely.
time. So,
Absolutely. And
uh,
Paul Young, who's our current mayor, who happens
mhm.
to be a friend of mine, believe it or not, he's an urban planner.
Really,
That's how I met Paul. We both started working in the planning department 20 years ago.
wow.
Yeah. And now he's the mayor. So it's good that we have an elected official who actually understands the art and the
Hmm.
work that it takes to go in a city building.
Hmm.
And that doesn't happen often. So
Yeah. And he's an awesome guy. I did a proposal to the mayor's office probably about a month or two ago. But it was for a mentorship program for young men and women in Memphis, but they already had something similar, so it didn't work out. But I'll probably come on as a what's the word I'm looking for, a contractor. I guess I will be a contractor with them. Maybe we'll see. A
absolutely.
vendor. That's
That'd
where
be
I'm
great.
looking. Yeah, a vendor. But again, like very innovative. Most stuff that I was talking about, they were already kind of working on it. Um, I met Brian Harris and his team. I mean, I had no complaints. Again, they came in, I presented. They already had it, but I could tell that they are really, really determined to get something done here in Memphis, which I appreciate because I tell people I live here in Memphis. I've been here since 2002. Love Memphis. But if we can't get things under control, people like myself will start moving away because you
Absolutely.
you know you want to be safe. So
Absolutely.
um I do have a question. It's not a normal question I ask, but because I went to PWI, which is funny, when I was in college, I didn't even know the difference between a PWI and HBCU. So what was your experience like? Because I didn't have a chance to have experience, but everyone I've talked to talked about how much they loved the environment and what they saw and what it meant to them. So, what was your experience like with HBCU?
Well, I'll first open up by saying, you know, a lot of detractors will make comments about the quality of our campuses, the quality of our programming, and the infrastructure of our campuses.
Mm-hmm.
But I want to first lead by saying a lot of times the reason that exists is because these states
Mm-hmm.
and these governments don't properly fund these schools. There have been several instances and lawsuits where HBCUs didn't get their proper share of funding from the Board of Education for that state, and they wound up getting it in the future. So I'll first say that.
Mhm.
Um, at HBCU, sometimes we have to do more, a lot more with less.
Mhm.
That's the first thing. Secondly, it is a blessing to be able to be at a school and not feel like you're a part of the school, but you are at the heart of the school.
Mhm.
That you are a part of how that campus moves, what happens on that campus. People that came before you that represent you are proud to be a part of that legacy.
Mhm.
They want to continue that legacy. They want the children to appreciate that legacy. And then the other thing for African Americans in particular, depending on where you come from, like the high school that I attended was like 95% Caucasian.
Mhm.
So I didn't have what's called the black experience.
Mhm.
I didn't grow up going to schools where it was predominantly African American kids. And we got a lot of culture and subculture
Mhm.
and traditions and so forth. So I didn't experience that.
Mhm.
Without a doubt, I was influenced by real world.
Yeah.
Seeing real world, seeing those beautiful sisters and those intelligent brothers and sisters going to school every day, working together,
Mhm.
aspiring to be great leaders and educators and intellectuals, it
Mhm.
motivated me. And
Okay.
then at that period of time, a lot of that was happening. You had movies like Do the Right Thing, you had
Mhm.
Malcolm X, and it was like a renaissance for us to become more intellectual, both academically and in the arts.
Mhm.
So, without a doubt, I knew I was going to a HBCU.
Okay.
My three HBCUs were FAMU, North Carolina A&T, and Southern University. But
Okay.
having that relationship with Southern University in the summer program, they groomed me to go to Southern University. So without a doubt, I was going to be a Jaguar.
Uh-huh.
And ironically, my daddy went to the rival, Grambling State University. So I grew up going to Southern University and Grambling's Bayou Classic.
Uh-huh.
And I saw the camaraderie of my dad, friends and brothers and longtime buddies from college coming to visit us and stay at our home, and they go
Mhm.
into the game. It was a big to do,
Uh-huh.
and it was a big tradition. And I said, I really want to feel like I'm a part of it. So I went to Southern University, and believe it or not, shout out to my buddy Sustin Irvin, Orlando Vince, Nathaniel Steele, my brother, Greg Stevens, my brothers, my cousins, my
Mhm.
friends I had grown up with, Brandon Morris, people I went to elementary school with, went to
Uh-huh.
Southern University with.
Okay. Yeah, the community.
I had a community. And then my cousin that lived close to where the Grambling campus is from that part of the state, she came down to Southern and stayed for a couple semesters. And then she turned coat and went to Grambling.
She
But I
turned coach head.
understand.
She
Yeah, that's
turned
where she
coach.
met her husband. But it was just a family tradition. My
Okay.
friends were so intelligent. It was so impressive because if you look at media, American mainstream media, it doesn't depict us in that way.
Right.
It didn't. We had Different World and Cosby Show, but a lot of people didn't believe that was really possible. I mean, I
Mhm.
had a well-educated father that was an educator and a coach and a athletic director, but aside from that, you just didn't know. So when I went to college, I met the most amazing guys and friends that I have ever met. So intelligent.
Mhm.
My buddy, Dr. Greg Garner, he's the chief medical director over a clinic called Care South in Louisiana that is constantly growing and opening up locations in underserved communities. And then one of our dorm mates is the CEO.
Wow.
And see, that's how you develop a legacy. So,
Yep.
my other buddy, Reggie Hamilton, he is a professor of engineering at Penn State. You know,
Yeah.
my other buddy, Theo. Theo is a retired officer from the military. He joined the ROTC, like you were speaking about your kid. He
Uh-huh.
came out as an officer. He actually served overseas in the Middle East with my brother.
Wow.
You dig what I'm saying?
Yeah, the
That-
camaraderie.
yeah, the camaraderie, the relationships, the just the pride that was instilled in us. And it wasn't just a matter of football games and bands and
Mhm.
beautiful people from all over the world. We had students, both African American and other ethnicities from all around the world at our campus. We had some of the best professors,
Mhm.
best professors. They weren't even American. A lot of them were foreign internationals who couldn't get an opportunity, just like us, at a PWI. So they
Mhm.
came and instilled and built up our programs. You know,
Wow.
a lot
Did
of
not know that.
Middle Eastern and Asian professors, African professors, some of the brightest minds from across the world were coming and dig, helping put things into us and building us up. So it was a great experience. Academically, we are forced to learn about ourselves.
Yeah.
We have to
Yeah.
have we before we graduate, we have to take Black humanities classes, either Black literature, Black history, or something pertaining to Black art.
Okay.
So we have to. So getting that knowledge of self gives you confidence when
Mm-hmm.
you go into the world.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you just have a
Man.
level of confidence, a different confidence. You don't
Mm-hmm.
feel like you're inferior. You don't feel like you're second class. You
Mm-hmm.
belong to a legacy, as named after your show, of people who've gone before you
Mm-hmm.
and continuing it on.
Okay. So,
It's just
and
it's awesome feeling.
yeah, and I'm thinking it's that fact you don't feel like a minority
No,
because
you don't.
I had a classmate that he went to. I cannot remember where he said he went to. Somewhere in the Delta. I don't think it was Delta State, but somewhere in the middle. And he said that this thing when he got there, I think it was actually talking about Jackson. But he said when he got there, it was the first time seeing like black politicians and black people, mayors and in leadership, And so he no longer felt like the minority because then and the example that was set made you realize like, okay, I have a standard to live up to.
Absolutely.
People are pouring into me. So again, I didn't chance to have that experience. I had cousins that went to Jackson State and other HBCUs. But I will say that every time they talked about the type of pride that they had, I love my school, Mississippi State. I had a great time at education. I ran track. It was great. But that type of pride they talked about in their school, it's amazing. But I think it's equivalent to kind of how I grew up. Not necessarily growing up like with less, but you grow up and you just value and cherish what you have, and you respect the people who poured into you because they didn't have to, but those people built us up and made us into who we are now. So yeah,
Absolutely. And it just I can't explain it. Like going to homecoming is like a holiday.
really.
It's like a holiday. You'll see everyone. Um, the barbecues and the parties are amazing.
Mm-hmm.
And if you pledge one of the Divine Nine sororities or fraternities, you really are, delved into it deep
Yeah.
and woven into the fabric of it. It's just an amazing thing. And I've even traveled. I've even traveled out of state. I used to do my internships in Colorado, as I
Mm-hmm.
mentioned, and people would take me in and treat me like family
Mm-hmm.
because I went to Southern University.
Wow. Now
I'm
that's a
talking,
community.
I'm talking access to events and parties free and
Mm-hmm.
invited over for dinner and introduced to their daughters. My daughter coming to Southern, I want you to meet her. She's gonna be a freshman. Look out for her.
Yeah.
Like like that.
Wow. And that's what you need. I tell people when we moved to Memphis, we didn't know anyone. We had no family up here. And so since we've been here, we've built family here, like you guys, like
Yeah.
Reed, Mario, Mo, Sheena, all these people. We've all became like families, from coaching track and football and basketball and all that stuff. But it's kind of the same experience. Like we're all like family. We all help raise each other's kids. We all watch out for
Yeah.
each other's kids. We give, if you see my kids doing something wrong, like, hey, Sarah, CJ, let me talk to you for a second. And you give them advice. So it's that same thing. And that's why I think I know from going to where I went to, like I say, great. Everyone takes care of everybody. It's great. But hearing your story, it makes me realize that pride. I have a cousin who was a principal. He graduated from Jackson State. And even when I went to Mississippi State, he's like, that's great, do what you do. He was like, but I'm telling you, you need to come and visit Jackson State. Now I never went and visited, like official visit. But he said, I promise you, if you go visit, that'll be your only choice. And I'm like, looking back, I should have went and visited. But you're young, you don't know what about so hey,
And
Chess. Oh,
I
go ahead.
forgot to mention, Reed Aeneas went to Southern.
Yeah, yeah, that's right.
I knew him. I didn't know him at Southern, but I recognized him from Southern when I
Okay.
got here, and that's how I got Trinity to run the track, and I
Wow.
started coaching because of
Wow.
Reed.
See, small
That
world, man.
connection. Yes.
Yep. It's crazy. Hey, I got another question about lessons, life lessons. But before we go on, it's something you said, man. I was telling my kids, and I don't think they really understood it. How impactful the show A Different World and the Cosby Show was for us,
Right.
because I didn't have a father figure growing up in the house, but watching I know Bill Cosby has all those crazy things going on now, But that show for me as a young black man taught me how to be a father and a husband. Because that was
Hmm.
the example. It came on every whatever night it came on. But
Thursday.
Thursday night, everybody sat down and watched it. From him, teaching Theo about money, Theo about dealing with girls, trying to use drugs, Vanessa sneaking out the house. All those was lessons that I was learning that I was going to implement when I became a father. And his wife was successful. He was successful. They took pride
They
in their
were
school, their work.
professional.
Yeah, they were professional. And I was like, you know what? I'm growing up in the projects now, but when I get old and have my own family, that's how we're going to be.
Absolutely.
So, and a different world made me realize I could go to college and what the process would be like. They made it look cool. They had the issues, but they made college look, one, attainable, and two, they made it look like it was going to be actually be fun.
And
So
it was a HBCU.
exactly. So I'm like, okay, yeah. So, but yeah, just that impact that it had on our culture growing up as kids, because I didn't see that every day in my community. A
Right.
doctor and a lawyer that were a power couple, and they were
That's what's
actually raising a
up.
family
You're
the
right.
right way. Not cursing the kids out and beating on them. They were actually teaching lessons.
Teaching
So
them.
yeah.
Yeah.
So all right. So my next question is, what life lessons have you learned along the way?
The first life lesson I would say I learned is that um, fatherhood is not innate.
Mm-hmm.
I learned fatherhood from my dad.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes we expect people to understand that, but they don't. And that's a struggle in our community. That's
Mm-hmm.
one of the lessons I learned.
Okay.
The second thing I've learned is that the best things in life aren't judged by the now, the present, it's looked at in the aggregate.
Okay.
I look back to when I was married. Of course, I'm divorced now, twice
Mm-hmm.
divorced.
Mm-hmm.
But when I look at how we thought when we were younger and we were married, we didn't think about the future.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't think what it would take for us to be married in the future.
Mm-hmm.
And as a result of that, you got to look at things in the aggregate. And sometimes what we think is not overcomable is. You
Mm-hmm.
can overcome it and you can get over it.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the life lessons I've learned is just to hang in there and thug it out. See what happens. Try to grow beyond what the issue is to maintain whatever you want to do. It could be a job, it
Mm-hmm.
could be a relationship, it could be something you might be going through your health. Stick
Mm-hmm.
it out, persevere, work towards getting over that
Mm-hmm.
and beating the odds of whatever it is. Because what's on the other side of you defeating that is greater than you running
Mm-hmm.
and greater than you walking away.
Mm-hmm.
And it tests your faith.
It
You
does.
know, you can't test your faith if you keep running away.
Right.
You have to trust God and allow Him to do His will and
Mm-hmm.
just be, just
Mm-hmm.
exist,
Yeah.
and just sit still sometime and be still and see what happens,
Yep.
and trust God that He'll work it out. I've
Yeah.
learned that, and it's helped me out through and through. I've had challenges in my life that I've been able to still smile through and
Mm-hmm.
laugh through because I know what's on the other side of the challenge is greater than the challenge itself.
Mm-hmm.
So you got to go through challenges, or it's not even worth it.
That's
It's
it.
not even worth it. If your life is easy, you don't have the life you really want to live.
That's it. That's it, Chad.
If your life is easy, you do not have the life you really want to live.
Mm-hmm.
People were saying at my job, Chad, you always talk about the Olympics now that the Olympics been on. You talk about Olympics. And I say, you know why I like the Olympics? You get to see people dreams play out.
Yep.
You
Yep.
get to see people who have worked since they were children fulfill a vision and a manifestation
Mm-hmm.
play out publicly for the
Mm-hmm.
world to see
Mm-hmm.
from all over the world, from Sudan, from Italy, from France, Puerto Rico, Spain.
Yeah.
You get to see it play out. You get to see people who come from villages without running water and plumbing
Mm-hmm.
and the sewer system and streets and curbs, and they
Mm-hmm.
live in huts. You get to see them dream,
Yep.
see it come to fruition, and we get to watch it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's beautiful, man.
It is.
And then you get when you hear the stories, if that doesn't inspire you to do better and bigger things in your life, I don't know what will.
Hmm. Hmm.
But seeing someone's dream come to fruition lets us know that can happen for us too.
That's it. That's it. Chad, as we talk about all the time, like that situation, like as Americans, as people, sometimes we complain about the smallest things and we give up, like you said.
Right.
But we don't realize that a lot of times the situations that we're in, there are people that will kill us to be in this situation. Like you say, we have
Absolutely.
running shoes, we have running water, we have a government in place. You're talking about people that may not even have running shoes to practice in,
Right.
or they may not have a track to practice on. So when they come to the Olympic trials or whatever, this is probably their first been able to actually, that's the only time they run on a track, or they're borrowing somebody else's spikes,
Yeah.
or, like you say, when you see the Olympics, man, you think about you training all this time to be still in peak performance for 4 years, and you do it for those 4, well, at that 4 year mark, and then you have to keep training the next time. You see somebody that's like a 8-time Olympian or some people, oh yeah, like you don't realize like this person's been on it for the last 10, 12 years.
For all of their lives,
Yeah,
basically.
eating, drinking, sleeping, everything they're doing it like they're like a well-oiled machine. I tell you this, Chad. I told somebody when I was in high school, I was the fast person. I thought I was the fast person I knew, right? When I got to Mississippi State, Chad, I didn't start running until my sophomore year. And I was sitting out there like, man, who made these people? Like there were people, there were people out there, Chad, that I mean, they woke up fast. That's how I felt, like but they had been doing AAU, they had been doing USA track and field, they had all this training that I hadn't done. I just, just natural talent to get me to that point because we didn't have all that. But man,
Right.
when I say it's a whole nother level of just the training aspect, even you and I coaching, SYS track and seeing AAU, you realize like there's a standard to this. This is a process to get these kids to the point where they're in peak performance, they're tip top shape and they're ready to go. And you see somebody do this on the world stage. Imagine even a person that gets bronze or fourth, you are the third or fourth fastest person in the
In the
world.
world.
Yeah. And people are, oh man, you got bronze. It's like, I'm the third fastest person in the world. The only people in the world that beat me on this day, and they may not beat me tomorrow, are these two jokers.
Right.
You know.
Or even if you finish dead last in the Olympics, you
You
are one of the
the
top 10 fastest people
yeah.
in the world.
You eighth fastest person in the world.
And
It's like,
so even just getting to the Olympics is a dream for some people.
yeah, it is.
But then you got those dreamers who dream even further and say, I'm not just going to the Olympics, I'm going to medal in the Olympics. I'm
Yep.
not just going to medal in the Olympics, I'm going to get a gold medal in the Olympics. I'm not
Mm-hmm.
just going to get a gold medal in the Olympics, I'm going to get a gold medal in the Olympics multiple times. So what that tells you,
Yep.
our thinking is our only limitation.
That's it. That is it. Thank you for joining me on this episode of Life, Lessons, and Legacy. I hope you found our discussion thought-provoking and inspiring. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to subscribe to the podcast and leave a review. Your feedback helps us to improve and reach more listeners like you. Remember, life is a journey of growth and discovery, and every experience, both the highs and the lows, contributes to the legacy we leave behind. So embrace each moment, cherish the lessons, and live with purpose. Until next time, I'm Cedric D. Nelson. You can find more resources, including my book, Life, Lessons, and Legacy, How to Take Life's Lessons and Shape Your Legacy. Available for purchase on my website at www.lifelessonsandlegacy.com. Also available on Amazon.com. On my website, you'll also discover information about my life coaching services and speaking engagements designed to help you unlock your full potential and live a life full of purpose. Until next time, take care, and I'll see you soon.